Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. I hope you all had a lovely bank holiday weekend. And we've got another bank holiday weekend coming up because of the King's coronation. Yay! Yeah. Do you care about the King's coronation, Stu? No, me neither. On with the show. There you go. What are we doing today, Stu?
Well, I thought we'd look ahead to UFC 288, Sterling versus Cejudo. And I mean, it's a stacked card, and we'll talk about a lot of that. And if we've got time at the end. Stacked? No, it's not. I don't know why I said that. That's muscle memory, that is, to just go, it's a stacked card.
It's a stacked card.
It's not. And another person's just fallen from that lineup last night, which I'm sure we'll touch on. Love him or hate him, he's always an interesting watch. But yeah, and I think we'll go through the sort of the bigger fights on the card, and if we've got time at the end, just want to sort of touch on. Not that we ever really want to talk about the bare knuckle stuff. It's not what we're about, but it was a big night for former UFC stars, and that's what kind of drew my attention over. And obviously, anybody that loves the fight game has seen the fact that Conor got in there at the end. So we'll touch on that if we've got time. There's a big Cage Warriors in Dublin as well, and we'll touch on Ricky Simon and Song Yadong, which was one of my favourite fights so far this year. But should we kick off with talking about Sterling versus the Melt?
I was about to say, how are you feeling? Because I don't mind the Cejudo cringe stuff. Like, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it is proper cringy, but at least he owns it, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't necessarily want to see him be successful if he does what he did before and just sort of leaves or chases the belt above, like goes after Volkanovski, any of that stuff. Yeah. But you have been proper annoyed by Cejudo for like the last year and a half. Yeah. And so how are you feeling knowing he's actually getting back in there? He's not just chatting about it, but we are on a Cejudo fight week. And in a few days' time, we could be saying bantamweight champion of the world, Henry Cejudo. How are you feeling?
I think there's a big probability that we will be saying that.
Really?
Yeah. He's just always just got on my nerves. I just think he's a tit. And I wouldn't tell him that. But yeah, and the fact that he was just like, right, I'm going to quit the UFC. And you know, I think he's done a bit of a Francis, where people think they're going to leave and the whole world's going to go, right, here's gazillions of dollars. What are you going to, like, people are just like, nah. And I think after a while, so I was like, oh, shit. No one.
He played it really badly when he left.
Yeah.
Because he was in a good place. He was effectively double champ.
Mate.
He was double champ, right? He was the double champ. He just retired, and the UFC went, okay, we're not going to pay you any more money. And now the flyweight division's got even better. Bantamweight didn't need help because bantamweight's always been a great division. So there you go. So he timed it very badly. 3 years out of the cage or whatever it's been now. So how you feel? Go on.
Did you see the little video of their meeting that went on the socials yesterday?
I didn't see it properly. No, I'm aware of it. But was it like a little bit trash talky, but then a little bit pleasant? Like how did that go?
It's quite weird. It felt like Aljo seemed like legitimately happy to be talking to him, and Cejudo just looked like he was being a bit guarded. And Aljamain starts shaking his hand, and I can only sort of compare it to when Alan Partridge meets a stalker, and he's just like, "Oh, you're still shaking it? Yep." And he just kept shaking his hand. And at one point, Cejudo sort of looks down as if to go, like, "Dude, like, you've been shaking my hand for ages. It's quite weird." And then ego kicks in between both of them, and they're both being polite. and it's very, very friendly. But Aljamain sort of says something along the lines of, yeah, this is, as long as we give the fans what they want, but unfortunately, I do, the downside of this is I will be crushing people's dreams. And then Cejudo's just got a bit of a smile, and he looks like he's got a few of his boys wrapped around him, and it's just I guess what you'd expect from two fellas that are probably cutting weight in the lead up to to a fight. But it was all right. But I just watched it and I just thought, oh, do you know what, Henry? You just get on my tits. Like I just think he's a melt. I really do. And his record speaks for itself. The guy's ridiculously, high level. And has proved
in
that
multiple sports as well.
I don't know if you know he was an
medalist.
Olympic champion. He was he'll tell you all the time, like just how good he is.
That wasn't a technical difficulty to anyone just listening to the podcast. That was Stu snoring. But please carry on, Stu.
But I don't think the division, as you said, has moved on. There's loads of killers in there now. Are them killers as terrifying or more terrifying than anyone that Henry's fought before? Do you think Sterling, poses a legit threat? Do you think Sterling's going to walk away victorious? How do you see the fight going?
I think it's kind of fascinating, and I think there's multiple reasons for that. The obvious one is, what's Henry going to be like? Like 3 years out of the cage, but then he's not been like Conor McGregor. He's not, on his yachts, drinking his whiskey, doing, whatever, playing in Vegas, whatever. He's in the gym. He's training
with John Jones.
He's training Zhang Wei Li. He's training Davison Figueiredo. Like, he's probably doing rounds of sparring with the likes of Davison Figueiredo, or like doing like rolling with Zhang Wei Li or whatever. He's surrounding himself with elite level athletes that are still there, the best. And that's probably only going to rub off on you in a really good way. Mm. So, he could come back looking better than ever. It's a possibility, but he's gone from being like the double champ at like 32, 33 years of age to now out of the cage for 3 years at 36. And I say this every time with the lower weight classes, it's tricky to maintain being at the top of the game when you reach your mid-30s, when you're like fighting at under 170, sure, 155 maybe. It's a real tough thing. So, yeah, I don't think any of them have fought anyone like the other, though. Like, I don't think Henry Cejudo has fought anyone that's as big as Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling is going to have a massive reach advantage. He's going to be, I think, way heavier. Aljo cuts a lot of weight to make that weight. That's why he's been talking about going up to featherweight for so long. I think Henry Cejudo is going to be fighting probably the biggest guy he's ever fought.
I think that could benefit Cejudo. I think his size might work well for him. I really do. And I think Henry is probably stronger than Aljamain. I think Henry's a solid lump. And I think that height disadvantage, I think, could be an advantage for him. I really do.
Stronger. I mean, looking at their bodies, there's only one of them that looks stronger than the other one. Yeah. I know there's different, but Aljo is muscle on muscle, man. Mm. So I don't know. I think also it's gonna be good to finish my point. I don't think Aljo's fought anyone like Henry either, with that pedigree of wrestling. That Olympic gold medalist. You don't get that. You've had Olympians, but Olympic gold medalist, that really is the top of the top.
Yeah.
I think that what will happen is this will become a weird kickboxing match, because I think Henry will, if he's smart, I think he'll be wary of taking Aljo down, because Aljo's got such a good jiu-jitsu game. And if he takes you back, you're in big, big trouble. So I think Henry might be wary of using his wrestling. I think that Aljo won't be able to take Henry down because of the Olympic pedigree wrestling that he's got. Yeah. So it becomes a weird kickboxing match. And I rewatched Aljo versus Pedro Munoz, because it's like the only time you really see Aljo striking, and I've never been a big fan of Aljo striking, but in the Munoz fight, and Munoz is a good striker, he kind of outstrikes him. It's really awkward, though. I think we're going to get something really weird because Cejudo started that karate style thing. Before he fought Demetrius Johnson for the second time, he adopted this new kind of karate in and out style. He tried to do it against Marlon Moraes. It didn't really work, and he kind of just bit down on the gum shield and was just swinging, and Moraes just ended up folding in the end. And so we've got that kind of weird in and out style that I think Henry's going to try and start with. And Sterling's got that. He's obviously very long and rangy, but he's just got a really awkward, weird style. And it doesn't feel like he's always totally in control of what he's throwing. So I really think this is going to play out on the feet and we're going to see something kind of bizarre. And I don't know which one go. I think because of Sterling's size, I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favors Cejudo. Because I think that weight cut in the 4th and 5th round, if they're constantly striking and it is back and forth, then I think Aljo could wilt a little in those championship rounds. But he could catch Henry with something big. And then Henry maybe has an experience. I mean, I was about to say he has an experience power like that. He has, because he's fought Marlon Moraes, who hits harder than Aljamain Sterling. But I just think Aljo could catch him with something weird, some weird up elbow, or a spinning back fist, or a knee up the middle, something like that. These are all things that could happen in this fight. But yeah, so I think early on, I think it favours Sterling, particularly with Henry being out for so long. But the later the fight goes, as long as he's been keeping up his cardio, which I think he definitely will have done, I can see it favouring Henry. So yeah, it's a really hard fight to call, I think. If you had to pick a winner, who would you go for and why?
I think that Henry's going to maul him against the cage. I think he's going to I think he'll make the distance up. I don't think striking is Sterling's strongest point. And then if you look at the wrestling, he's wrestling, he's way inferior to Henry's. And I agree with what you say. Is Henry going to want to get taken?
I don't know that I agree with that, but carry on.
Oh, there's absolutely no way that Sterling's wrestling is as good as good as Cejudo's. No chance.
It's not as good, but again, MMA wrestling is different, isn't it?
It is. It is
Olympic style wrestling.
But,
and you've got to factor in the kind of submission game of Sterling as well. I think Cejudo would be very wary of that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get you know, this is for the world title. This is, you know, you got two of the best in there. I don't know why I'm even having this conversation. You're trying to make me talk more about how good Cejudo is, and you know that I don't like this belt, and I really like Aljamain Sterling, but I just favour Cejudo. If we're looking at the Cejudo that we saw a few years back, that I do think pains me to say it, but he's one of the greats, and I do think that he'll maul him against the side of the cage. I think it'll be, if it goes to the ground, then I think it could be an interesting matchup, because you've obviously got very solid wrestling, but then you've got probably unparalleled, jiu-jitsu in what Funkmaster's got, and I don't think Cejudo's going to want to mess with that too much. So I also understand what you're saying, that it could end up being a bit of an odd striking contest, but yeah. I think after a couple of rounds, maybe Cejudo will just think that this isn't for me. Like I need to just get him against that cage and wear him down. And I don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting fight, but I think Cejudo will grind out a win just through sort of dominating him a little bit against the side of the cage. If it does go to the ground, it could easily flip, and Aljo could get a finish. But I don't see it being a knockout. I don't see Aljo's striking being solid enough to knock out Cejudo, and vice versa. So I think we could see a bit of a... I mean, to be honest, when you look at all the hype around this, like, it's been a bit subdued, if just from a fan's perspective. You know, when you look at like previous cards, you know, if this was O'Malley fighting, there'd be a lot more interest in this fight. And yeah, considering this is the return of a two-weight champ, it's been a bit muted. This ain't John Jones coming back.
Hell no. No, you're right. But that's the thing. People just didn't care. When Henry retired, I think he was expecting everyone to go, no, please come back. You're the double champ. We need you. You're one of the greatest ever. You're Olympic gold medalist. You're everything, you know, Triple C, all that stuff. And everyone just went, all right. And even Dana, the night of him retiring, went, all right, well, we'll make an interim fight between Peter Yan and Jose Aldo. So, moving on. No one cared.
Yeah. And that's reflective in the level of, you know, press and, you know, hype about this. You know, it just feels like, oh yeah, that's this weekend, doesn't it? It doesn't feel like, oh, I've been waiting for this, can't wait for this. And I don't think it's helped by the rest of the card, to be honest.
There are some good fights on this card. We'll move on to those in a bit. But you're right, it's the people who, you know, meritocratically brilliant, doing well, but they're not the number pushers. They're not the ones with the huge fan followings or the social media followings or anything like that. So you're right, it has been a bit subdued in terms of the press and the lead up into it. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people thought of UFC 286 outside of the UK, because obviously we're all in it, and you know, Leon's our champion, he's our guy. So there was a lot of hype in the UK around UFC 286. What would that have been like in New York?
Look, we love
LA
Leon
or whatever.
We love Leon. Leon as a rock star. You know, when you look at Conor McGregor or you look at Sugar Sean, you know, they're superstars. And I don't think Leon's that. And I say that with the greatest of respect.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
You know, he's not buckets of, you know, trash talking and you know, he's not about that. And we know that that's what creates, you know, Masvidal's and things like that, where arguably none of these people are as good as Leon, but their stock is somewhat more exciting to a casual fan. I'm trying to phrase this right because I don't want to come across like I'm dissing Leon Edwards. Because
look,
you know,
anyone with half a brain is going to know what you're saying there. Leon is a bit more of a humble guy. I really love him as a champion. The head kick against Usman and the charisma he showed immediately after that, the headshot dead thing, the getting emotional in the cage, all that stuff. That is what made people sit up and go, whoa, Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
But I think even the lead up to the first fight, it was all about Kamaru and like not really about Leon that much. Again, in the UK it was.
Yeah, of course.
Outside of the UK, it was very, very different. But this, again, the co-main, I don't want to move on to it just yet, but the co-main is two guys that meritocratically are right up there, should be getting the next shot at Leon. Instead, it's going to be Colby for the reasons that we're talking about right now. The reason it's Colby is because he is someone that moves the numbers up when they're talking about, you know, pay-per-view numbers and all that kind of stuff, unfortunately. But that is the way.
But it's weird, isn't it? Because Cejudo carries himself just the same as, you know, that other Mel. You know, he does like gob off and, you know, talk about how incredible he is and trash, and he does all of that, but it just doesn't say. Put it this way, right? You've got. We'll move on after this, but I just want to say, right? Cejudo's making his comeback, right? Arguably one of the greats. He's fighting Sterling, who has proven to be a solid champ. You know, like deserves what he's got. And it's a big fight. It's on paper. It should be a huge fight. I've seen more discussion on MMA forums, like social media platforms, over the last 5 days about Mike Perry than I have about either of those two.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I can't argue with that. You are 100% right. Yeah, and it's I mean, and I'm not a fan of Mike Perry at all. Mike Perry has said and done some pretty gross
Yeah.
things in his career, and we may talk about that a little bit later as well, the BKFC stuff. But what before we move on, I want to say,
Who are you picking?
I think because Henry's been out for so long, I have to pick Sterling. But
Okay.
and also I think negating that reach and that size is going to be a problem as well. So I'm going to say Sterling's going to do him.
Okay.
But what about you? Are you picking Sterling or are you picking your mate Henry?
I'm going to go for my old bud Cejudo.
But what's interesting is what happens to the division after Saturday night. Like if Sterling wins, I've listened to him on an interview recently being like, oh, well, I'm not going to step aside for Merab until the UFC give him like he's number one contender fight and then we know he's getting it and then I'll move on. So the chances are you've got Sterling wins and he fights probably O'Malley next because O'Malley seems to be waiting in the wings. And then maybe moves up. So we're not getting a long reigning champion in Sterling if he stays. And then he probably holds up the division by doing a champ versus champ fight against Volk. And if Henry wins, maybe he goes for O'Malley as well because he would say it's the easiest fight that he can get for big money as well because those pay-per-view numbers should do well with Sean O'Malley. But Henry Cejudo strikes me as the kind of guy that goes, look, I've proved to you I'm great. I've won again. I'm going to kind of do what I did last time and semi-retire again unless you give me the Volkanovski fight. And so then is he holding up the division again? I can just see it. Either one of them wins and I can see it causing long-term problems to the prospects coming through at bantamweight. And I worry about that. What do you think a similar thing? Do you think they'll behave in that way, or do you know? What do you think?
I think if Cejudo wins, I don't think he's that deluded to think that he can beat Volkanovski. Like I think that's a bad fight for him. I don't see him beating.
He's spoken about it a lot before.
He speaks about a lot of stuff, but I think the realities of it are, I think he's going to go right. Okay. So I agree with what you said about O'Malley. We say it's a winnable fight. We've not seen what he's going to come back like yet. Cejudo. The fact that Sugar Sean's been very quiet. There's not been sort of a lot of talk of him fighting anyone else. So I'm thinking perhaps that's the plan, that he gets the winner of this and maybe they turn that fight around sooner rather than later. I don't know. I don't think Cejudo goes and fights Volk. I just don't think it's a winnable fight for him. And I'd be more interested to see him then fight what's his name? Aljo's teammate. I forgot his bloody name.
Merab.
Dvalishvili, yeah. I think that's because Merab deserves that shot.
I don't think Henry takes that fight.
It's a boring fight. It's not screaming notes.
And that's the thing. Henry, as we've discussed, is 36 years old now. He wants to pound notes. He's going Sean O'Malley. Okay, that's a big paycheck. I'll do that. After that, there is no one really that Cejudo will go, oh, this is a legacy-defining big money fight, other than stepping up in weight and trying to be a 3-weight world champion against Volkanovski. That's the only thing I think that would motivate him. Otherwise, I think he just strings it out as long as he can. Maybe retires again. I don't know. We'll just wait and see. I don't think either of them. I think I would rather see Aljo win because at least there's some consistency in the division. We've got a champion. That guy needs to be beat, even though I can see him kind of moving up in weight as well and holding things up potentially. But if Henry wins, I think we're going to get some unnecessary drama and, maybe not an active champion. But we shall wait and see. In terms of being active, though, Gilbert Burns is on
Burns.
He's on his third fight in about 4 and a bit months.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns is on one. He's hunting down that title shot and showing you that, like, top of the division, really accomplished fighter. But he's not wasting time. He's going bang, bang, bang. Neil Magny in January beat him in the first round. Masvidal only a month ago or whatever the hell that was. He beat him on points. And now, a month later, he's fighting Bilal Muhammad, who, if you take out the Leon Edwards eye poke no contest, is on something like a, I don't know, 9-10 fight win sheet. It's on something crazy. So props to Gilbert Burns for stepping up and doing this fight.
But, you know, at 170, yeah, I think he's doing the right thing. I think he's going, look, I'm just going on a fucking tear. I want that shot. And and I think, you know, fucking Colby Covington getting that shot. It really fucks me off that. When you look at what Gilbert's doing, you just think, right, there's a guy, the winner of this should get that shot. And
yes.
And yeah, well, it's obviously not going to happen, but I presume the winner of this, you'd imagine, would get the winner of Colby. But then, have they announced a date for Colby Leon?
They have not. They obviously wanted it to be in July, but that's now fight card. Leon said he doesn't want to do that. I think Leon wants to fight in Abu Dhabi, which I believe is October time.
That's a long time. That's a long way away. So does the winner, if Burns wins this, which I think he will, does he sit tight till next year now? I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy deserves an holiday. But does he sit tight and go, right, look, I've just fought 3 times in 4 months. I'm now gonna take some time out until that fight's done and I want the winner. Like, that would make sense to me.
I think the winner of this fight should be getting the title shot next, and I think they probably will, but I think it'll be after Colby and Leon.
Yeah,
and
of course.
It is a difficult, kind of dangerous game to play, because if Burns or Bilal wins this, especially if they win on points, and it's not the most exciting fight, and I don't think that will be the case, but if it wasn't the most exciting fight and someone wins on points, and then Shavkat, while they're sat out from April all the way to maybe, I don't know, March of next year, May, sorry, to March of next year, because that's when Leon hopefully beats Colby and then fights again, then a lot can happen with the likes of Shavkat Rakhmonov, for example. Or does Hamzat come back and fight Kamaru Usman and beat him? Because there was talks of that the other day. So it's a really tricky one for the winner of this fight. They could easily get screwed over again, but hopefully they won't. And I think timing is everything. If Leon fights Colby in October, there's a world in which one of these winners is going to have to go and get yet another win, which feels unfair. But as we've discussed many times, it's not a meritocracy in the UFC. It's not always
Not
fair. And this is the way it goes.
And it doesn't help that Bilal Muhammad's fight style is not the most exciting. It's very effective. His win streak screams that. That can't be contested, but he's not a fan favourite. He's not a fighter that when I see his name on a card, I think, yes. I just think, oh, right, yeah, no, he deserves that fight. I don't. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't get hyped. Yeah. If I see Gilbert Burns, I just think, yeah, wicked, can't wait. I love watching Gilbert. But like, Bilal Muhammad, he's ranked where he's ranked for a fucking good reason, but I just think, am I excited to see him fight Leon Edwards again? Nope. Am I excited? I mean, I think it's a great matchup for Leon. I think Leon takes that win, and I think he'll find that fight a lot easier than he will Gilbert Burns or Colby Covington. But
I think this fight could be exactly what either of them needs. I mean, Burns, particularly after the Hamzat fight, gained a lot of respect from people, and the excitement of watching a Burns fight has become more, although it maybe dipped a little after the Masvidal fight. Well, that wasn't great. But I think this fight could be exactly what the winner needs, because I can see this going in a similar way to the main event, that their ground games cancel each other out. I don't think Gilbert Burns is going to be able to take Bilal down, because he doesn't have good enough wrestling to take down someone that's a very, very good wrestler in Bilal Muhammad. Equally, Bilal Muhammad is going to be playing with fire if he decides that he's going to try and take Gilbert Burns down, because Gilbert Burns' submission game is second to none. He is unbelievable when it comes to jiu-jitsu. He still takes part now in world championship jiu-jitsu tournaments and beats like champions. Like, he is phenomenal in his jiu-jitsu. So for Bilal to take him down is a huge risk. So I can see this, again, like the main event, playing out on the feet in not as weird a kind of kickboxing match as what the main event could be, but certainly a less technical kickboxing match than what you would get if you had two decent strikers in there.
Okay.
I think what we're then looking at is Gilbert Burns' power versus Bilal Muhammad's pressure. And it's which one works out the most. Again, I think early on, first half of the fight, Gilbert Burns is the one to watch. I think he cracks harder than Bilal Muhammad, and Bilal could get knocked out. But as the fight goes on, if Bilal can keep a pace up on Gilbert Burns and wear him down, especially when you consider the fact that Gilbert Burns is on his third weight cut in like 5 months, 4 months, whatever it's been, that's a lot. I know that he's not a big welterweight because he used to compete at lightweight, but he is still cutting weight every time. And having cut weight just a month ago for a fight and then doing it again, we'd have to talk to someone that cuts weight regularly and fights like this. How much is that going to take out of your cardio? How much is that going to take off your chin and your durability? These are interesting things to factor in. And I think the longer the fight goes, we could potentially see Bilal Muhammad get better and better and better and start really putting a pace on Gilbert. And Gilbert starts to struggle with that a little bit. That's which one way or the other. I think Burns gets him out early within the first 10 minutes of the fight, whatever, 12 and a half minutes of the fight, or it becomes more Bilal Muhammad. And it could easily be a very close decision as well that goes on here, I think.
Well, if you're basing the weekend on our thoughts on the two top fights of the night, fuck me, it's a boring card, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, not at all. It's going to be, because this could be great. Like, watching these four men that are elite level grapplers and wrestlers just go at each other in a kickboxing match could be really fun. This could be great fun. We could see Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad just going at each other for 5 rounds. Bilal hits him with 3, but Gilbert comes back with a huge hook or something like that. And we could see something fun. And the striking that we could get in the main event could be super weird. And that could be funny as well. That could all be great. I think there's every opportunity that, because of them both being in both the main and co-main event, both being such elite level grapplers, but not wanting to necessarily take each other down, and they just remain on the feet. That's going to be way more exciting than seeing Aljamain Sterling or Henry Cejudo fight Sean O'Malley, and I'm just going to take him down and either lay on him or get on his back and look for the choke and whatever, or Burns versus Masvidal, which was a bit more boring because Burns was looking to try and get him down as much as he could. So I think, oddly, these fights, you're not watching Pereira Adesanya. You're not watching elite level striking. But could it be entertaining? Absolutely it could.
How's this fight finished then? Who are you picking?
I don't know. Because again, I really do think that Burns could catch him, and club and sub is always there for Gilbert Burns. If Gilbert Burns catches him with a big shot, which is very, very possible, and then the fight goes to the ground, Gilbert's going to be diving on top of him and locking up a choke.
That's how it goes.
That's what it is.
Third round, Gilbert Burns, ground and pound. Knocks him down, grounds and pounds him.
See, I think he could do the same with a sub, but I do think, what is Burns going to be like going into the championship rounds? Is it possible that he's like, oh, shit, this is my third fight in 5 months. I've done 3 weight cuts. I did a weight cut only a month ago. I went the distance only a month ago. I am absolutely shattered. And now Bilal Muhammad, who I thought I'd maybe won the first 2 rounds comfortably, maybe even got a 10-8 or close to finishing the fight, and the bell saved him. Now Bilal's got that second wind, and he's coming at him with pressure, up against the fence, laying on shots. All right, they're not as powerful as what Gilbert does, but he's constantly throwing his hands at him. We could see Gilbert really struggling in those last rounds. So, gun to my head, if I had to pick, I think I would pick Gilbert, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Bilal wins this, especially if it goes long.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're confident of Gilbert winning this one, are you?
I think Gilbert finishes it in round sort of 3 or 4.
I tell you what, in a sense, Bilal Muhammad's already won because in getting this fight, he doesn't have to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov.
No one wants that.
Because no one wants that.
That's why Gilbert Burns going, Bilal Muhammad, do you fight him? Can I fight him next week? Shavkat, no, don't want that one. Anyone else?
Dana, you know what you said in London about me fighting Shavkat? Gilbert, anyone, literally anyone, not Shavkat.
I have people ranked way above him. Fine, that's fine.
That's fine, absolutely fine.
That guy.
Oh man, that is it. What happens with Shavkat now? I don't know, but it's going to be an interesting one. Right, moving on to Jessica Andrade versus Yan Xiaonan. Possible title implications here. Andrade
115 this one.
Yes, at strawweight. Yeah, it's difficult when Andrade is popping up and down weights all over the shop. But Xiaonan is 6, Andrade is 4. I mean, the UFC must love having Jessica Andrade on the roster. You know, she takes a fight on just like, what was it, 2 weeks' notice or whatever it was against Erin Blanchfield at 125 in a weight class which is usually a bit smaller against a surging prospect in Erin Blanchfield as well. And she just goes for it, takes it, gets beat. But I think the UFC love that mentality where she's just going, I will fight anyone, any weight class, whatever. She's popping back down to strawweight now. And I think a win against Xiaonan, because of the way I think the UFC must see her, could get her a title shot. Because who doesn't want to see Jessica Andrade versus Zhang Weili? I was calling for that fight after Jessica Andrade beat Lauren Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
That will be an absolute banger. I know we've seen it before, but I don't think it goes that way exactly again, the same way, you know? So I think that could be a fantastic fight if that were to happen. I think Xiaonan's on a mixed run of form, you know. She won her first 6 in the UFC, but then I think she fell short to Carla Esparza,
and Rodriguez.
Who absolutely dominated her. And Rodriguez, who's, you know, and that was, from what I remember, a very close, slightly controversial split decision. So, and
just to say, you mentioned Mackenzie Dern there. Just been announced she's fighting Angela Hill, which I think is a great fight.
Say that again?
They've just announced Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill.
That, I mean, that's a really interesting one. That striker versus grappler type situation. I think the person who's going to be watching this most intensely is probably Amanda Lemos, because she is looking like she could be next in line for a title shot. She's ranked 3rd. She's above Andrade and above Xiaonan. But Lemos had that sort of historic loss to Andrade where Andrade got the first ever standing arm triangle in the UFC. So if Andrade beats Xiaonan, you'd probably think, well, maybe Andrade is above Lemos in the pecking order because she's got a win over her. So, yeah, I think Xiaonan's a very good fighter, but I don't think she's got any kind of like A+ skill anywhere. I think she's like a good, solid, all-round fighter. Jessica Andrade, I think, should have a big power advantage, and I think should be more dominant within the kind of wrestling and ground game as well. So I'm expecting this to play out on the feet. I'm expecting Xiaonan to do well in the striking, but I think when Andrade hits her, I think it's going to be telling. And I think that power is going to show through. I also am slightly biased because I love Andrade. I love the way she fights.
Absolutely.
And I really want to see her fight Zhang Weili again. So I'm going for Andrade on this one.
Yeah, I'm on board with you on that one.
We've lost. Oh, go on. What are you saying?
In that fight with Erin Blanchfield, I think we both thought that Andrade was just going to demolish her, and and it felt like
I don't think I did feel that.
I did, and I just thought she'd be too strong, and the power didn't feel like it was there. I didn't think.
What surprised me the most was I thought that Blanchfield, because I'm a big Blanchfield fan, and I thought Blanchfield's wrestling would play a huge part in that fight. And actually, she was able to strike with Andrade. That's what really, really shocked me. I did not think she'd be able to strike with Andrade for long periods of time. And she did, and she hurt her, and she did very well.
Yeah, and that was it. I remember at the beginning of the year when we was doing our predictions, and I was just sort of, I think I was like, yeah, no, Andrade sort of like easily gets that win because she's so strong, and it wasn't apparent in that fight, and so yeah, I don't know.
Class above though.
Yeah, exactly. So
Erin Blanchfield is much bigger than Yan Jianan will be, so, and Erin Blanchfield's a phenomenal wrestler as well.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how it goes, but I'm gonna side with Andrade just because, like you, I want to see her get that shot because I'd love to see the Zhang fight.
Yeah. So Movsar Evloev versus Bryce Mitchell is off the card, which is very, very disappointing.
Well, it'd be nice to see
this fight. Two elite level grapplers. Go on, what were you gonna say?
Well, no, looking at Evloev's record, nothing to give me more joy than seeing him destroy Bryce Mitchell, because the guy's a wally. Well, he is, isn't he? Like,
yeah, he's a gun loving, flat earth believing conspiracy theorist, but everyone's got to have a hobby, I guess.
Yeah, put it this way, he ain't my cup of tea, but I do like watching him fight.
I do like watching him fight. Yeah, his scrambles are really interesting. And
who demolished him last time out?
Tapuria,
yeah. Fuck that guy. No one wants that amazing. One.
No, absolutely not. Evloev is still fighting, but he's fighting against the guy who's on a UFC debut, I believe.
Diego Lopez. He's the number 2 featherweight in Mexico, and so according
to Tapology, yeah.
And it's a big moment for him. Do you know what I mean? It's like you get called in at the last minute, and we've seen it before. Those people that get pulled in, and they just think, right, this is my moment, and it's shit or bust for a lot of them, and you've seen some upsets, and the crowd kind of love that as well. When you get somebody that's been pulled in last minute, and all of a sudden they bite down on the gum shield and they're ceasing their opportunity. Oh, we love that. It's the Rocky story, mate. And unfortunately, Diego Lopez, it ain't going to happen because Evloev's just obviously on an absolute fucking tear. But
man.
But
I think that's a real shame. I was really looking forward to that fight. Actually, I thought that was going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see Harry come back after that defeat. But yeah, so what's happened? What's wrong with him?
I don't know. Some injury. I don't know if it's disclosed or undisclosed. I didn't see what the injury was, but he's out. He's injured.
Right.
I don't know. Do you remember the time that
I've just pulled it up here. I've just thought Bryce Mitchell unable to fight. He's too stupid. Yeah, he's too stupid.
You are making enemies left, right, and centre, mate. You got to be. If this show ever gets big enough for us to go over to America and start covering fights, you're going to need to start getting the apology letters ready for some fighters. I do remember when Bryce Mitchell was doing some home repairs. And he stuck a drill in his pocket and it twisted up one of his testicles. That is one of the things that happened to him. He went into A&E because he literally twisted his testicles around the drill.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of reckless man that we wanted to see in the cage. Please do go and check out that story. It is also gross.
And Google Bryce Mitchell wank sock. Because
my god, I forgot about
that. That's some story, that is.
He's a character, isn't he? He's a character.
He's definitely that.
He's definitely that. So Is there anything else on the card you wanted? There's one other fight that I've got a bit of an interest in, but there's
Cron
not.
Gracie's coming back. We've not seen Cron Gracie fight for a while. He's back fighting Charles Jourdain. Drew
I love
Dober,
Charles Jourdain as well. He's one of those guys that's very rarely ever ranked, but I've always really liked his style. I think he's really good.
He's just come off a loss to our boy, hasn't he? He lost to
Wood.
Yeah, Nathaniel.
Yeah. He lost to Nathaniel.
Drew Dober, Matt Favola. Do you know what? It's really weird.
That could be a good fight.
Every time I look at Drew Dober, I think, guys, he's doing really well now. I think he's on a 3-fight win streak at the moment. And I was thinking, it's going to be his time soon. He's been in the UFC for 10 years. I looked at his...
How old is he?
60... no, but I think he... Where was it? Let's have a look. His first fight... he's fighting on the undercards of Velasquez Verdun. His first fight... He's
34 years old.
Yeah, 2013. He come runner-up in the Ultimate Fighter season 18 finale. Yeah,
you're right. I do think of Drew Dober as like a young up-and-comer, but he's not, is he? He's been around a long, long time.
Crazy. And
you're right though, 3-fight win streak and all finishes as well.
Yeah.
Like that Terence McKinney one was great. He was nearly done himself. Rafael Alves, and then if you finish Bobby Green, you're doing well.
100%. And let's look at his losses, right? His losses in the last 5 years. He's lost to Brad Riddell, Islam Makhachev, and Benil Dariush. No shame in them.
And no shame in Olivier Aubin-Mercier as well. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, this is back in 2016, though. He's gone on to be the PFL champ.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. And as I say, 3-fight win streak. Looking good. Matt Favola, I believe, has been doing well recently. I think he's got a good fight style, both these guys. I think this could be a really fun fight, potential fight of the night on this one, I think. Favola's on a 2-fight win streak with 2 finishes as well. And his last 3 fights have all been finished. He got finished by Terence McKinney. So his last 3 fights, all stoppages. I believe Drew Dober's last 3 fights, all stoppages. So this one probably ain't going to the cards. So that should be fun. And then other than that, Marina Rodriguez versus Virna Jandiroba. This is another one of those fights.
Why is it so low on the card?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. You're looking at the 5th ranked strawweight versus the 9th ranked strawweight. They probably should be higher up the card. But... This is what's happening nowadays. But anyway, this is one of those interesting kind of striker versus grappler matches. Virna Jandiroba is more than just a grappler, but that is her bread and butter. And I don't think she'll want to strike for too long with someone as good as Marina Rodriguez.
Sure.
I'd say this is the toughest fight, or at least the toughest striker that Virna's faced. I would say that Marina has faced better grapplers than Virna. She's faced Carla Esparza. She's faced Mackenzie Dern. And in the Carla Esparza one, I think I scored it for her, even though she lost by split decision. So she can do well against elite level grapplers as well. So I'm going to favour Marina Rodriguez in this one. But the only kind of factor that I think we have to consider as well is, what's she going to be like mentally? She's coming off her first ever KO/TKO loss, which she lost to Amanda Lemos in her last fight. And she's never lost in MMA by KO/TKO. So, so I think that could be interesting to see where her head's at. But I would favour Marina Rodriguez in this fight. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
I don't have anything else to say about 288.
No, nor me. Let's hope it's as you see it, and it's going to be an exciting night of surprise fight styles from wrestlers. Who knows? Yeah. I hope so. Did we want to touch on anything outside of that, or did we want to wrap it up and maybe do another little recording? What do you want to do?
I don't know. I think we've done nearly 50 minutes. I think maybe that's enough, and maybe we'll drop an extra little bonus ep where we can talk about what's gone on over the weekend if you want.
All right, let's do that then. Thanks ever so much for listening. Make sure you enjoy the fights at the weekend, and go check out in the meantime the back catalogue, because it's not only Blake and I that are on this show. Generally, we have a guest on, or sometimes guests. We had guests on a couple of weeks ago. We had Jack and Richard Shaw. It's a great listen. That I'd urge you to go and check that one out. Only last week we dropped our interview with Jake Hadley, who had lots to say about Mohammed Makayev and their beef and where he sees that beef going. And previously we've had everybody from Michael Bisping to Tyron Woodley to Mark Goddard to Dan Hardy. Help me out here, Harrison. What else?
Oh, Alexander Volkanovski, Arnold Allen, Paddy Pimblett, Molly McCann, Derek Brunson. Oh, the list goes on. And Kenny Florian was another good one as well. So we've had on legends, current fighters. We've got Cage Warriors crop like Nathan Fletcher, who did very well recently. Ian Gary, who's got a fight coming up soon, I think, Ian Gary. We've had the best of the best on the show. We've had some phenomenal fighters. We're very, very lucky. And so please have a flick through the back catalogue, give us a like, and if you can be bothered, please give us a little 5-star review, because that helps us out as well. And if you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. And is that it?
I think it is. We'll see you next time.
Bye.